Hello, Assalamu alaikum everyone. We'll start the webinar in a couple of minutes. Assalamu alaikum everyone. This is Zainab from Dice Analytics. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you on behalf of Dice Analytics for today's webinar on Explore Data Analytics using SQL Server Tools with Abu Bakr Alvi. As the title is quite self-explanatory, we are very glad to have Mr. Abu Bakr Nisar Alvi with us today. Mr. Abu Bakr has 21 plus years of extensive experience. He handled multi-million-dollar project as a project manager in the defense sector. He has been working as an ICT consultant with various organizations, including the World Bank Group. He's a Microsoft certified data analyst, a Microsoft certified trainer, certified project management professional, and Agile certified practitioner. He's the youngest professional engineer to be awarded with the 4th highest civil award, Tamgha Imtiaz, by the government of Pakistan in 2005. In today's session, you will get a brief introduction of Microsoft SQL Server Data Tools and why you should be learning data analytics using these tools. Mr. Abu Bakr Alvi will enlighten you about the SQL Server capabilities, functionalities, and the way to pursue it. Moreover, he'll be discussing the data ecosystem, skills required, and will be telling you about the lowest hanging fruit to start your career in the field of data analytics. This webinar will be followed by a Q&A session at the end, so I would like to request all of you to note down your queries during the session. That's all from my side. I hope we all get the most out of today's session. Over to Mr. Alvi.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ji, Assalamu alaikum. Just give me 1 second. मैं जरा अपनी settings एक दफा check कर लूं. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can. Yes, we can.
All right. Okay जी, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim जी, Assalamu alaikum. कैसे हैं जी आप लोग? I hope everybody is well. जैसे ज़ैनब ने introduction करवाया, this is going to be probably a 1 to 1.5 hour webinar, and we have kept around 30 minutes for the question and answers. So it would be a mix and match between Urdu and English. I'm not sure how many people are joining this webinar from outside Pakistan. But anyways, agar किसी का कोई question हो, या if somebody wants to comment for speaking me, if they want that I should speak in English throughout, then they can just put it on the comments. Otherwise, I assume that most of the please use English. Okay. So I'll use English because I understand there are a few people who are not from Pakistan. So, but you can ask questions in Urdu if you have any, and I will answer those questions in Urdu as well. So today's webinar is basically about data analytics and how we can use SQL Server Tools to understand and learn data analytics. So basically the agenda for today's webinar, before I jump into the agenda, although Zainab has given an introduction, so it's again a slide that shows my introduction. You know my name. I have worked with multiple organizations. So I have around 22 years of experience, and I'm done a lot of certifications from PMI and Microsoft as well. So beyond the introduction, so the agenda for today's session is basically around the data analytics industry. So I'm going to talk about the data analytics industry overall, and specifically how it is working with reference to the Pakistani market. And I'm assuming that a lot of people joining this webinar are the ones who want to learn about this specific industry. So in their mind is that how do you enter this field if you don't have the requisite background, you don't understand what is required to become a part of this industry. And then obviously the main focus of today's discussion is that if somebody wants to enter the analytics industry, then how the SQL Server Data tools can help and why we should be using those. And then I'll be talking briefly about the skills required to excel in each area that the data analytics industry is all about. And then how DICE Analytics can help you to jumpstart your journey. And in a very short span of time, you can become a part of this industry and then enter the learning curve with time and with experience, you can become a very useful resource in this industry. And obviously, at the end of the session, we'll have an elaborate question and answer session. So, why data analytics? So this question is very pertinent in the world that we are living today. And basically, if you just look at this statement which is that data is all around us, but without analytics, it is just numbers and noise. So we hear about data all the time. We read everything on our laptops and on our mobiles, and everything, even on the television that we see. It is a digital form of data. So as the process of digitization or digitalization has come about over the last decade or so, the growth of data has been enormous. But data is nothing if you don't have the analytics wrapper around that data. So it is just a bunch of numbers, of binary numbers, ASCII codes, text, anything that you see on your mobile, anything that you see on your laptops. It is just data. But if you have a wrapper of analytics around it, then basically you have something that has a lot of value. So data analytics basically is the process of the transformation of this raw data or these numbers or this information within the noise into successful decisions. So once we are talking about businesses, we are talking about everyday decisions that are required by businesses. Then basically it is the process of the transformation which starts from the raw data and leads to successful decisions. And so this statement is not just a statement, it is a complete ecosystem where we have certain tools, certain technologies that are aggregating all this data. By aggregation, I mean you have data sitting somewhere, you are collecting that data, bringing that data into a central repository. It could be a database, it could be a data mart, data warehouse, all the tools, ETL tools, I'll talk about those in details. And basically, then the whole process starts. So once you have this data, it is not just, it's not simply dumping a data into a huge repository. You have to basically place this data in a way that it is meaningful. And once that is done, the next step is basically to get the insights out of that data, and you have to present that data. You have to present it to the stakeholders of your business. You have to present it to the data managers. You have to present it to the different stakeholders within an organization. And within an organization, there could be multiple stakeholders. There could be a HR a team. There could be a finance team. There could be a sales team. There could be a marketing team, and so on and so forth. And ultimately, beyond this presentation, if that data is not useful enough to make an informed or a data-driven decision, then all of this exercise that you have done, starting from the collection and the aggregation of data, and then the presentation of data, if all of this leads to a decision that is not a successful decision, or that decision is not data-driven or fact-driven, then whole of this exercise in terms of the time and the money and the infrastructure, it is just a waste. So basically, once we are talking about the analytics industry, the key thing that people tend to forget, and especially the people who are the aspirants, or who want to enter this field, they must realize that whatever you are doing here, it must transform to a successful decision. The successful decision doesn't mean that if you are looking at a quarter, you must expect some kind of a profit or a revenue within that quarter. Basically, the successful decision basically represents represents data that you can use to change something. So decision making basically means changing something. If you are not reaching your goals, if you're not reaching your objectives, then basically you make a change based upon that data, and then the whole process starts again. So ultimately the use of data has to be for decision making. If you are just using data to present good visuals, make dashboards, or build all these cool apps, ultimately if that is not being used for decision making, then all of that effort translates to nothing. So again, this slide shows the conversion of the raw data into actionable insights, through these cool visuals and through these cool dashboards. But ultimately, it has to be some kind of a successful decision. So why to pursue a career in data analytics? This is a question that a lot of people have in their minds. So over the last decade or so, once these tools the tools of the data ecosystem have been, a lot of growth has been seen in these tools. The primary reason, obviously, once you are looking at a job, is the salary that at the end of the day you are getting. So because of these tools, and because of these new technologies, and because of the internet speed, and because of the accessibility of these tools to a lot of people around the world, you have people in the data analytics industry getting a salary which is higher than the average salary that you have. And it is again, I've just mentioned that because over the last 10 years, this field has seen a lot of growth. So you have a tremendous amount of demand for this particular skill set in the industry. And as the field has grown, as the tools, more and more tools are coming, as we have an ecosystem which started off with very, very simple things, and now we have very, very complex things, not only on premise, but also on the cloud. You have a lot of roles and specialities. You have dedicated people who are working on premise solutions, and then you have people who are working on, just on the cloud-based solutions. So a lot of growth has been seen, over the last decade or so. And more than 80% of the companies are likely to adapt big data analytics technology by 2025. So this is a report by the World Economic Forum. You can just Google it, World Economic Forum 2025, and that report basically shows that by 2025, 80% of the companies are likely to adapt big data analytics in their in their day-to-day working and day-to-day decision making. So to summarize everything, once you are planning to pursue a career in data analytics, then there is a lot of growth opportunity at this point in time in this area. And with a very specialized skill set in a very, very short span of time, you can enable yourself to become a part of this whole ecosystem. So I see a lot of hands being raised. So if you have any questions, you can put those in the comments, and I'm going to come back at the end of the session, and I'm going to answer all these questions. So I've talked about basically what in general is data analytics, and I've talked about what why you should be pursuing a career, or if you are already into a career and you are not using data as a part of your daily routine, or a part of your daily work, then basically you must understand what this whole data analytics ecosystem is all about. So if I have to put it in a very, very simple manner, this is like 6 or 7 steps that basically define the data analytics workflow. Some of this is technical, some of this is about strategic thinking, some of this is about even communication, how you interact with people, how you gather the requirements, how you tell a story. So all of this technical, strategic thinking, and communication skills. So you can say there are 3 pillars on which this whole workflow is based. So if I start from the very left, you can see that the first step here is understanding the business case. So understanding the business case is basically, simply put, understanding the problem that you're trying to solve with data. So a problem could be very simple as that. Okay, this is the revenue for the last term, and we want to have a 20% growth in the next quarter, or maybe in the next 6 months. So this could be a very simple problem, and a problem could be very complex. If you are looking at a problem where a company wants to maybe predict something for the next five years, or maybe you are looking at an IoT based solution where you have got a lot of data and you want to predict what is going to happen based upon this data over the next 1 year. So it could be very simple problem, and it could be a very complex problem. So whatever the situation or whatever the scenario, you have to have a good understanding of this problem. And by understanding, I mean you need to not only understand what the end decision makers want, you also need to understand that, do I have the requisite data to answer the question that has been asked? So I cannot answer a question about profitability of a company if I don't have the data about the revenue of a company. How can I calculate the profits if I don't know how much revenue that company made in the last term? Or similarly, I cannot answer a question about maybe a particular machine, the probability of a machine going out of order, if I don't have the data about that machine, the different parameters of that machine. Some kind of requisite information has to be there to basically answer that question. So the first part, which is the non-technical part, is you have to understand the underlying business case and the underlying problem. Once you have this understanding, then basically you make a plan. You build a measurement plan. And by measurement plan, I mean that you start making a list of the metrics, or the list of the objectives, or the list of the goals that you are going to achieve once you have that information and the requisite data available. So you say, okay, I need to have numbers for sales from this region. I need to have number of sales from another region. I need to have weekly data. Do I need to have monthly data? Do I need to have daily data? So all this, based upon this, you start making certain metrics. You say, okay, I'm going to need my daily sales. Maybe you say, no, I don't need daily sales. I just need a number at the end of the week. Or maybe you say, okay, I don't even need a number at the end of the week. Maybe I need a number at the end of the month. So all of this planning you need to do before you actually start doing something physically with data. So you have a measurement plan, you have goals, you have some KPIs, you have some metrics, and you have certain objectives that you have in mind based upon the business problem you're going to solve. So this is again not a very technical field. It is again something that requires strategic thinking, that requires the ability to ask the right question from the right stakeholders or the right decision makers. Then the next step is basically the part where you collect and prepare the data. So once you know that what is the problem, once you know that these are the questions I need to answer and these are the KPIs that I need to meet, then you start looking at the data itself and you start collecting the data. Now, the data could be residing in your PC. It could be residing on a server within your company. It could be maybe residing on the cloud. It could be residing on a server which is on another continent. So all of this, you need to understand that where that the data that is going to answer your questions is residing. And then once you decide that, okay, here is the data that I need, then you make a plan that how I'm going to collect that data. So we are going to talk about it in a bit detail later on. So basically what we do is we start building pipelines. So pipelines are similar to the gas pipeline. So you have a reservoir somewhere, and then you have a whole infrastructure that collects water or oil or something like that. from that reservoir, and then you build a pipeline that provides that information to where it is required. So we use the term pipelines as an analogy that we have in the plumbing world. And then once you have this data, then you start preparing that data. It's not that the data is now available to you on your laptop or on your server. You are, the job is done. Actually, the job actually begins once you have that data, you have collected that data. And this is the data preparation phase. You have to clean that data. You have to transform that data. Then you have to basically load that data in a certain way. You have to do the data modeling. So this is the area which is purely technical area, and we are going to talk about this area in much more detail. Then comes the second part, which is the understanding the data. I've mentioned data modeling. So basically here you model the data. You put this data in a way that that is suitable for the analysis. Once you have collected the data and you have done the cleaning and the transformation, here basically you are modeling this data. Then you have certain techniques that you use to model the data in a way that it is suitable for analysis, that it is optimized for the analysis. Next is obviously the part, now once you have the data available in a certain data model, then you use the analysis tools. Then basically you use the tools that you do that help you make visualizations and do your analysis based upon the questions that you were given in the business problem and the metrics or the KPIs that you define here. And then the thing that I mentioned in the first slide, it is not about making a dashboard. It is not about making good cool visuals using a lot of fancy colors. It is about getting the data driven insights. If you don't have those insights, all these 5-6 steps, they absolutely mean nothing, because the decision maker needs to get the insights from the data. He has invested so much around this whole data analytics ecosystem. So here is the place where he or she is expecting answers from you to the problem that was given. And obviously at the end of the day, once you have certain insights, then the whole process, there's an iteration where you measure, you test, and then you go back and then you optimize. You say, okay, this is working good, but I need to improve this. So from here you go back to here. Maybe you revise some of your questions. Maybe you change some of the data pipelines. So this is the whole data analytics workflow that that a data analyst or somebody who's working in the data analytics industry, he or she needs to understand properly. So once we have a basic understanding of how this data analytics ecosystem looks like, then this is a more kind of a more detailed view of how the whole process works. So you have something which is basically managing the data collection. So data could be coming from anything. It could be coming from your mobile app. It could be coming from a server. It could be coming from the checkout of a retail store. It could be anything. It could be a bank's database. It could be HR database, anything. But once you have this collection mechanism in place, then you need to basically channelize this information in a way that basically it makes sense. So you have some kind of an ingestion mechanism. So some pipeline, some data pipelines are coming from the cloud. Some are coming from maybe a local server. So you have a mechanism that basically collects this data and then ingest this into a pipeline, which ultimately ends at a data repository, which could be a data lake, which could be some data mart, which could be maybe a landing server, anything like that. So here, once you have this data where you have collected and you have ingested everything, then you start basically preparing this data, and you normally put this data into a data warehouse. So if you are looking at a bigger organization, some organization that has a lot of data, then you have a data warehouse where you put this data, you build this data, you have this data warehouse. And again, after this preparation phase, you need to have certain computations where you are, building your data models, where you are, collecting data from the various layers of the data warehouse. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you are presenting this information to your stakeholders. So this is a next level view, which is kind of, covers from this from this part to kind of, this part. So these four steps are, elaborated in terms of how the technology looks like. So in the next slide, this one, we are like looking at a much, granular level, much more detailed level of how this whole things look like. So in terms of the collection, it could be the mobile apps, so web apps, microservices, IoT sensors, anything. And then you have certain protocols in the like REST, MQTT for IoT sensors that are used for data ingestion. And there could be certain third-party tools that are basically, these are your pipelines. And all of this data is basically ending up in a data lake. It could be a big data, warehouse, which is based upon HDFS. You can have a data blob. You can have, if it is a streaming data, you can have a Kafka messaging queue, anything, based upon the problem that you're solving. And once you have all the data here, then you build and, prepare and do the computations, using different frameworks. So this slide basically shows the most commonly used tools, technologies that are there, in the market. But it could vary, in a different, in a different scenario. It could vary. So this is just a broad understanding of all the basic technologies that are there. So once the data is in the data warehouse, then you have the last layer, which is the data presentation layer, where you are using the BI tools to basically build visualizations and do all this stuff. So this was a brief understanding of how this data analytics system, the data analytics ecosystems look like. So over the last 10 years, something which is now a reality and something which is very, very pertinent is the cloud technology. We have a cloud computing technology, which is basically driving this whole data analytics ecosystem nowadays. Previously, it used to be on premise. You used to have a lot of servers within the premise of the organization. But as cloud technology is becoming available, it is becoming cheap, it is becoming secure. A lot of companies, they are moving from dedicated infrastructures where they need to have dedicated IT teams, where they need to have system administrators and a lot of manpower. So instead of investing in that infrastructure and paying the salaries for those people, they basically are now quickly, or very rapidly, they are moving from on-premise solutions to cloud-based solutions, or a mixture of on-premise or cloud, which is called hybrid architecture. So we have three big players, although there are a lot of players, but three big players: Microsoft Azure, AWS, Amazon AWS, and Google Cloud, who are leading the cloud-based technology. So the same ecosystem that I showed to you here in this slide, which is which kind of reflects the on-premise tools that are available. You have different vendors offering different solutions, or different products, or different you can say different technologies for all the layers, for all these 5-6 layers you have in all of these big cloud service providers. So this is the data ecosystem on Azure. We are going to talk about this in much detail, because once we are talking about the SQL Server Tools, this is where the next step, or the natural transformation takes place. You work on the SQL Server Tools on premise, and then you simply take that knowledge into the cloud. You don't need to learn new things. Maybe learn a few things about how the cloud works, and a few things about how these tools work. And believe me, the working of these tools is now very, very simple. Most of these tools are simple drag and drop tools. So if somebody is coming from a non-technical background, he or she does not need to worry too much about the IT, or the whole programming thing behind all of this. So most of these tools are very, very simple. So this is the slide that was on Azure. This is again the infrastructure, which is on AWS. It's again very, very simple. That the names are changed, but essentially they do the same thing. That that I've just shown you on Azure. And lastly, you have the same architecture also available on Google Cloud. The names are different, some of the capabilities are different, but essentially you have the same data collection, ingestion, preparation and computation, warehousing, and then presentation. So these are the 5 steps that you need to just keep in mind once you are entering this data analytics information, the data analytics ecosystem. Okay. So now, once you have this understanding, now, the $1 million question is that, okay, now I understand that what is data analytics. Now I also understand that it is a very, lucrative field, or it has a lot of attraction, or there's a lot of demand in the industry. And, you have a basic understanding of how this whole data analytics ecosystem works on premise or in the cloud. Then how do you enter this field? So this is the $1 million question that everybody is asking. So I showed you this workflow, and I said that it is a mixture of 3 things. It is a mixture of strategic thinking, some kind of technical knowledge, and basically ultimately some kind of communication skills. So now we are going to focus more on these 4 areas, which are like the technical areas. In terms of all the other things, this is the technical part. This is probably the business part, and this is the communication part. So here it is mainly the technical thing. So if you are entering this field, this is the area that you probably need to focus, or this is the lowest hanging fruit. If you know something around these 4 areas, then there's the probability of getting into the data analytics industry or data analytics field becomes you have the prospects get bright. So you need to just focus on this area, and once you have figured out this area, this is the area that you develop over time, over that, as you work, as you gain experience. This is the area that you can slowly develop, and you can have a learning curve that develops over time. So now, using all of the things that I mentioned, and specifically the area that I just highlighted, I'm going to focus on what Microsoft SQL Server Tools have to offer around these 4 key parts. And then we are going to dive deep into how these tools can help you enter the field of data analytics. So if I talk about these 4 areas, and I talk about the SQL Server Tools, we have 4 or 5 technologies around the Microsoft SQL Server ecosystem, which is the Microsoft Server Integration Services, which are called SSIS. This is the icon for SSMS, which is SQL Server Management Services. And another tool, which is another Microsoft tool, but it is not part of the SQL Server family. It is the Microsoft Power BI. So this is the tool where you make all the analysis and you build all these visualizations. And to sum it up all up, we have something in the cloud. These are the tools that you can use basically on premise, or once you are not working on the cloud. But once you have this knowledge, you can simply go from here to Azure Data Factory in the cloud, and some other tools which I'll be talking about in a bit. So the SQL Server family, or the SQL Server family of tools, they give you that jump start, that if you are familiar with these tools, if you are a new entrant in this field and you choose these tools, then the probability of getting into the analytics industry, the prospects, they get very bright, or you have a very good prospect of entering into the industry. So once I'm talking about the SQL Server Tools, I'll be linking these tools with these 4 steps. The first step, which is the collection and preparation of data, then the understanding of data, the analysis and visualization, and the development of the data-driven insight. So I'll talk about each of these steps, and I'll talk about how the SQL Server family will help you understand, or learn what and how this whole process works. So if I'm talking about the first step, which is the data preparation part, or the collection and preparation of data, we have essentially three big things. First is basically identifying and correcting the issues with the data. So in real world cases, in 99% of the scenarios, the data that you're going to require, the data you need to collect, it is not going to be clean data. It would have a lot of errors. It would have a lot of issues that simply you cannot use that data for analysis. So basically the first step that you do is basically data cleansing. Then you have a phase which is called as the data profiling phase, where you basically use this information and you build upon that. Using that knowledge, you understand the key statistical properties of your data, and then use that data to build certain profiling metrics. You say, okay, what is the highest value, what is the lowest value, what is the what is the average value, what is the standard deviation, what is the variance. So a lot of information that is required at this stage to in terms of understanding of the data that you do. And basically 95% of the time after the data cleaning part, all you are doing is basically the data engineering, or ETL. So ETL stands for extraction, transformation, and loading. So I'm going to talk about ETL in a bit, but how the Microsoft family is going to help you all about go about this. So in SQL Server, like I mentioned, we have two basically tools or two utilities, which is SSIS and SSMS. These are some of the functions that SSIS and SSMS offer you to do all these steps. So you have a lot of these connectors. You have an environment. You can just use these connectors. You make these connections, and it is mainly drag and drop. You just click one of these connectors, drag it on the canvas, and start building all these pipelines that I was talking about. And once you are doing this, basically what you are doing is you are doing these ETL processes. You are making you're doing some filtering, you're doing some data cleaning, you are merging data, you are appending certain fields, you are joining certain fields. Maybe you need to transpose the data. The data is available in one way. You want to transform that. You want to change the shape of that data. Maybe the data is at a different granularity, and you want to take it to another granularity. So a lot of these things you would be doing, and you would be using these tools. So basically the first step, which is the cleaning, which is basically the collection of data. You're collecting it from different sources, and then basically you are preparing this data for analysis. And all of these steps you can do using the SQL Server Integration Services and SQL Server Management Services. So the next step, once you have done all the data transformation, you are done with the ETL part, which is like in the overall analysis or in the data analytics ecosystem, it is like 70% of the time you are doing the ETL part. If you are taking up a problem from scratch. So basically you are collecting the data, you are continuously collecting it, you are continuously cleaning it, you are continuously preparing it. And then once you are done with all the preparation, then you have to basically store that data in a way that is useful or that is optimized for analysis. It's not something that you are like pulling up a million or a billion rows and 10,000 columns and putting it in an Excel sheet. So there are limitations. You can't put that in a in a database. So all of that has to be done in a way which is done through data modeling. So the next step, once you are done with the collection and preparation, is basically the understanding of the data. And this is all about data modeling, where you learn what kind of data models are there. So we have like an OLTP systems, which deals with the transactional data, the data which deals with transactions, or all of the transactions that take place in a retail store. So that is a transactional data. But you cannot ask the checkout guy to give you a report of of all the transactions that have happened. That system cannot answer all those questions. So in order to answer those questions, you need to have a data model, which is a dimensional data model. So once you have done the data modeling, then there are different types of data models. So first of all, you basically understand what is a conceptual data model. How many entities are there, how many what kind of relationships are there in between those entities. And by entities, I mean the business entities. So if you have a retail store, you have products, you have customers, you have salesmen, you have you have orders. all of these are business entities. So you basically take those entities and you make a conceptual model around it. Once you have made this conceptual model, then the next step is basically building a logical model. You basically define the primary keys and the foreign keys, in your model. So a model is something like that. I'm not going to go into the details. So it is basically a bunch of tables, and there are, these lines, they represent these relationships, and then there are certain keys which are called primary keys, and there are certain keys which are called as foreign keys. So basically you have, in the first step, you have this thing, and then you start building these relationships. You start building, these you start making these keys, and you start putting that data in a certain way. So this is the logical way. And once you have done the conceptual and the logical modeling, then you put everything in a physical database or a physical area where the data needs to be stored. And this is the physical data model. And once we are talking about the physical data model, there are basically two main data models that are used. The first one that I talked about is the transactional data, where which you also called as OLTP systems, which deal with the transactions that, okay, these many transactions took place in a retail store. So you arrange that data model, or you arrange that data in one way which is suitable for storage. But once your end goal is not data storage. Your end goal is basically the analysis, which is the next step. So basically, you learn the techniques where you transform this transactional data into what we call as the dimensional data, or we call as the business intelligence data modeling, where we have these schemas which are called the star schemas and the snowflake schemas. So this is probably the second part of the whole ecosystem, which is a bit technical. But again, most of it is basically drag and drop. Okay, so once we are here, again, we use SSIS and SSMS. So we have the SQL Server, which has all these databases, and we use the SSIS tools we use these SSIS tools and the SSMS tools to basically do this part as well. And once you understand the first two parts, you can basically just take that thing into the cloud. It's as simple as that. So this is something that you can do on the cloud as well. So once you have done everything in SSIS, at the end of the day, you have what we call as a package. And you can simply take that package and put that package into the cloud. And it would kind of mimic everything that you have done on premise and create the same ecosystem or create the same pipelines that you have on premise into the cloud. So this is how simple it is. Once you are talking about the SQL family, that the same things or the same tools or the same technologies, they are replicated in the cloud. And for those people who don't understand what cloud is essentially something that you are doing on another computer using the internet. As simple as that. So something I'm doing on my laptop, I just take that and do it on someone else's machine. In this case, Microsoft's infrastructure. But the steps that I've done on my machine or on my laptop or on my PC, I just mimic those steps and take those into the cloud. There is some kind of technicality attached, but again, most of that is very, very simple. It is the kind of things that we do in terms of making our email accounts, or creating an account on Facebook or any other social media platform. The things are very, very simple, have become very, very simple now. Previously, it used to be very, very complex. It used to be very, very technical, but believe me, it's not that technical anymore. One thing that you need to understand, and which is the foundation of everything, is and it came up many times in even once I was talking, was the term SQL. So SQL basically stands for Structured Query Language. So it is a language. It is basically a programming language, but it is not a programming language that people have from the non-technical background or the non-CS or non-IT background in their mind. It is something which is very, very simple. So SQL or SQL, as we call it, once we pronounce it. So it is a language that is the foundation of everything around data analytics. So everything that you are doing, although most of it is drag and drop, there would be certain areas where you need to understand how you need to work in SQL. So SQL is a very, very simple language, query language that primarily you use to retrieve and manipulate data inside a database. So you can use it basically to create a database, create all the tables in the database, put queries to the database that, okay, tell me how many sales today were like more than 1 million. So this is a query that that is the question that you ask, and there is a way to basically write this query, and this is not very complex, that that basically tells you that this information. So anything that deals with the retrieval as well as the manipulation of the data, and it could be the insertion of data into a database, it could be an updation, it could be a deletion, anything around that. And then a few things that you learn around along the way is our views, stored procedures, and then something to do with certain security permissions on the database. But the point that I'm coming to is that if I have like 80% of the things are like drag and drop in this SQL tools, and then 20% of that of the rest is basically around SQL. But if you know SQL well, you can you don't even need to go into all these drag and drop tools. Like 90% of the things you can do using SQL, and most of the technologies, most of the tools that have been developed nowadays, they basically are using SQL in the background. So once you have done all these steps, the final step is basically now the analysis, where you are going to make all those cool visuals and all those cool dashboards. So you started off with your business goals. You started off making all those metrics, and then you using your data, that, okay, to answer this thing, I need this level of detail, this level of information from my data. So you have these kinds of metrics, or these kinds of things that you develop on paper, or maybe in your maybe any other tool that you have. And then once you have developed these, then basically comes the analysis part, the visualization part. You need a tool to show, okay, how am I going to show the revenue by region, or by my total revenue by my product categories, or maybe I need to show my month-on-month revenue change by product. But then you need to have this understanding that what kind of visual I need to build to show this information. So this is probably the step which again requires some kind of strategic thinking more than technical knowledge. All of us, we use Excel on a daily basis, and building visuals in Excel is very, very simple. And the tool that we have to build visuals like this, once we are reached the point where we are analyzing the data, is Power BI. And Power BI is again part of this Microsoft family. It's not part of the SQL Server family, but it's part of the Microsoft family. And you need to understand this tool. And it is a very, very simple tool. It's not a very, very complex tool, not a very technical tool also, where you can do all of this work. So all of the data that was basically collected to answer this question ultimately ends up on a dashboard that looks like this. So we started off from this business question, and now we have this dashboard. And this dashboard has to be developed in a way that the decision maker can use this number, can use these numbers, can use these visuals to basically make successful decisions. So again, once you have made this, then you need to have the last thing which I mentioned is that the insights. It should be data, and all of those insights should be data driven. So you have an element of storytelling. So you see, this is these narratives, these text narratives, they basically tell the story. These numbers, they don't tell anything. So if I am looking at this, I can just by looking at this visual, and I can see this, that we are losing sales. So this narrative building is what we call as data storytelling. And this again is the part where you require some kind of skills around the communication, where you need to communicate well with people, you need to build a story. So ultimately, all these data analysts using all these fancy tools that SQL Server and Power BI has to offer. They are basically ultimately data storytellers. They are basically bridging the gap between the business users, the stakeholders, the decision makers, and the technology guys, the people who are, looking at the data, who are managing the data. So they are basically filling this gap between the business side and the technology side. So if I have to give a very, very simple or crude example, I'll show you this graph. So if somebody is from an IT background, they would know that there are certain tickets. There is a software and they're used in the IT industry, which is called Jira, JIRA, where you have, and it is used in other industries also. It's basically a project management tool. So you have maybe a team that is resolving certain software bugs. So they have this kind of visual which has been built by a data analyst that shows that, okay, these were the number of tickets that were received by the team, and these were the tickets that were processed by the team in a particular year, starting from January to December. And this is a very simple bar graph that has been developed. So this is a graph that I'm trying to show you, to explain that what data storytelling is all about. So this is something that has been developed by a data analyst. But if you look at this graph in this visual, the same graph now uses a different visual, and it has a different context added to it, a different narrative added to it, which gives a much clearer picture to the decision maker. So this is what I call as data display or data dumping or visual dumping. And this is what I call data storytelling, that the decision maker who spent all that money, who built all that ecosystem, he needs to get a picture like this. He needs to see something like this. So this is where the complete data and analytics ecosystem it comes to an end. And this is what we call as data storytelling. So here we can clearly see that, okay, in January, we started off the year in January, and till May we were very good in terms of receiving the tickets and processing. And then 2 employees left in May, and the rest of the team members, they tried to cope. They were able to cope up for a couple of months, and then the gap started to widen. And at the end of the year, this was the gap that was there. So now the decision maker reading this, and by having the context of what happened inside that company, he or she can make a very, very quick decision. Again, this is another example where you have some kind of a survey that was done before a science experiment. So there were certain students who were asked questions before an experiment was done. So this is the pre part. And then once that experiment was done, and then they were asked the same question after that experiment was conducted. And you have this crappy pie chart, which is showing you what the students felt before the experiment and after the experiment. So this is one way of showing the data. This is what I call as data dumping, or dumping of the visuals. But a data storyteller would present this data in a way that anybody who is looking at this, he or she would know that, okay, this was the pilot program, or the experiment that we conducted was a success, because before the program, the majority of children, they just felt okay. But after this pilot program or this experimentation, more of the children were kind of interested and excited. So we brought more children from the okay segment to the kind of interested and excited segment. So this is how basically the data analytics journey comes to an end. It has to tell a story that is super easy for the decision makers, super easy for the stakeholders. So I've just mentioned Power BI. I'll just give brief introduction of what Power BI is. Power BI is one of the very, very powerful tools that is being used in the industry And most of you must have heard about Gartner. Gartner is a research company that basically publishes reports around a lot of areas, technology areas. Business intelligence and analytics is one of those areas. And for consistently for the last many years, it is listing Microsoft as the leader in terms of all the other solution providers in the industry. So this is a visual from the Gartner chart from January 2020, and this is from February 2021. So anytime the 2022 the Gartner report would come, and I'm expecting Microsoft to still be leading this area. So in terms of Power BI, again, you not only basically learn the visualization part, you learn how to do the analysis. And for that, we have what we call as a programming language, which is kind of similar in terms of the concept, but in terms of the it's different in terms of the syntax, but in terms of the concept, it is very, very simple to SQL, which is called as DAX. So DAX basically stands for data analysis expression. So once you are into this whole thing, now you understand, now I have entered this analytics area, and now you are learning all these tools. Then a lot of people have this Google, a lot of people have this query that how we are going to build up a profile. So if you're working with SQL or tools offered by Microsoft, then the Azure ecosystem offers international standard certifications that, based upon your learning, based upon your learning curve, you can do with time. So you can start off with very, very simple these certifications, which is the one that I'm showing, which is the Azure Data Fundamentals. It's a very, very simple certification that you can probably clear with maybe a two weeks learning. You start learning, and you keep appearing in these exams which are offered by Microsoft all over the world, and you keep earning these certifications. And this basically adds value to your portfolio. You can put these badges on your LinkedIn, on other social media platforms, on your CV, that basically tell the recruiters or the people in the community or people in your network that, okay, this person has started to build a certain profile around it. So once you are learning all these tools, these are 3-4 certifications. The first one was the data fundamentals. The other one is the data engineer associate. Then the Power BI certification, which is the data analyst associate, and then the database administrator. So you're not only learning all these tools, you're not only learning these tools on premise, or you're not only learning these tools on the cloud, but you're also building a portfolio with very, very little investment, like $100 on average. You can put these very cool certifications on your portfolio. And while you are learning, you are doing everything hands-on, and basically you are developing your portfolio as well. So probably the last thing before I actually go into the question and answer is basically, a lot of people have these doubts. What kind of skills are required once you are planning to become a data analyst? So like I said, data analyst is just a word. You would have roles. Once you enter this whole ecosystem, then you have a lot of roles and specialities. And basically there are 4 broad areas that are there within this whole ecosystem. The first one is the data warehousing and the business intelligence. The second one is big data. Third one is the machine learning, or what we call as data science. And the last one, or the one that is towards that offers the maximum depth is deep learning. So all of these areas, they are connected with one another. So if I have to start off my journey, I would probably be targeting this first first milestone, which is the data warehousing and business intelligence. And the roles associated with this particular segment is ETL developer, ETL engineer, BI developer. Some people even call these as data analyst. So the words, they sound similar, but it is the job responsibilities that you see. Basically those define that what kind of work you're going to do. So once you are targeting this particular area, then SQL, Power BI, some understanding of the basics of cloud and data modeling, these are the core skills that you need to have. So once you have entered the this data analytics ecosystem, probably this is the first step that that you need to take. If you are already into this, then you can move from one step to another. So the next probably a logical step, if you are looking at staying doing something hands-on with data, is moving from a traditional or a modern data warehousing to a big data warehousing kind of a thing. And here you have an infrastructure which could be on premise or which could be in the cloud. And again, you learn more things. You from SQL, you move into the NoSQL databases, then you learn the technologies around Hadoop, Spark, Kafka, streaming streaming data. Then you need to add some kind of programming language to your learning toolkit. It could be Python, it could be Scala, it could be Java, it could be R, anything like that. Again, another step would be going from big data, or even from this data warehousing, it would be going into the machine learning machine learning area, where the job titles could be like the data analyst, it could be maybe an ML engineer, it could be a data scientist or ML ops engineer. All of these, they are interrelated, very, very little difference, but the skill set is that defines basically what kind of role you are looking, or what kind of role you are targeting in the industry. So here you probably need to have a more mathematics or statistics, the more understanding of mathematics and statistics, and concepts like regression and classification, apart from SQL and the BI tools. And last, once you are you have done some work in machine learning, then you go into deep learning, where you are learning all these fancy algorithms which are related to text analytics, which are relating to AI based AI based image processing, natural language processing, all these applications that you hear about these days, like self-driving cars and stuff like that. So this is the whole ecosystem, and these are the skills. But if you look at the first two lines, probably SQL is something that you need to learn. And why I am mentioning SQL again and again, it is because the SQL answers questions at all these layers, which even some of the tools fail to answer. There could be certain scenarios where a particular tool cannot answer a particular question, but SQL is there and it can answer all of your questions. So SQL tools, once you're talking about SQL Server Tools, SQL is basically, again, the foundation of everything that I have talked about. Again, this is some of the roles that I've just mentioned. You hear about machine learning engineer, DevOps engineer, cloud engineer, BI developer. So all of these tools, all of these roles, they are there in the analytics industry. So now the last part before I open the forum for question and answer, that I have, talked I've been talking for almost an hour, and I've been trying to build a story that if somebody wants to enter the field of data analytics, then these is the bare minimum requirement. These are the steps A, B, C that you need to take, and how Dice Analytics can help you basically jumpstart or catapult your journey of becoming a data analyst or becoming a part of this whole data analytics ecosystem. Because Dice Analytics is one of the leading training providers that covers all these areas which I have talked about. So we have trainings targeting each of these areas, starting from the data warehousing and business intelligence, from data science and engineering, advanced machine learning or deep learning. We also have hands-on trainings on specific tools, like the one which I have mentioned, which is Power BI, Tableau. And once you have this whole thing done, then you need to have an administrative layer or a development layer around that. So you have these DevOps people who are developing stuff and then putting it into production and putting it into operation. So all of these areas Dice is covering through targeted trainings. And for today's talk, the SQL Server Tools, the specific specific to today's webinar, we have this SQL Server training coming up in 3-4 days time. We have this training starting from the 22nd of January. where we are going to talk about all these tools, the SQL Server to Data tools. We will be learning SQL over 8 weeks. We will be learning SSIS. We will be learning Azure Data Factory, and we would be culminating everything with Power BI, where we are going to, create a dashboard or create a report that is not just a dumping of data visuals, not just dumping of visuals, not just dumping of information. It is basically something that tells a story. So you will learn what data story is all about. So this is the journey path that we have. So we'll start off with SQL. We'll spend some time at start, and this SQL will continue throughout. We will then, from once we have a basic understanding of SQL, we'll go to the SSIS, which is the integration services, and we will start off with the basics. Then we will learn what data modeling is all about. So here we are talking about ETL. Here we are talking about the understanding of the data, how you model the data, and then based upon that data model, we are going to build a data warehouse, where we will be talking about not only the transactional data model, but also the BI dimension, or the OLO, or the OLAP, or the cubes that we have the technical terminology for. So once we are done with this, then we are going to understand that how, using SSIS, we can make packages, or we can make something that basically automates this whole process. I don't need to worry about this thing happening manually. I can just have some kind of a script which is there, and every day I can collect data. I can use that script to clean my data, put it into the data warehouse, or if that data warehouse or a part of this data warehouse is in the cloud, I can even do that. So we will, once we have learned everything on premise, then we will be targeting the data factory, the Azure Data Factory, which is effectively in the cloud. And once we are done with everything, the data is ready to be analyzed, then Power BI comes in. And Power BI is all about the visualizations, what kind of visuals we are going to make, what kind of analysis do we need to do, what kind of formulas we need to make, how we need to make those formulas. So we culminate this whole data analytics ecosystem, process, or the workflow over 8 weeks in this training. And this training is going to start from the 22nd of January. I think Zainab or Huma would put the link for the training to our website in the chat box. You can have a click the link, and you can see what all we are going to cover there. So I end my I have a 1 hour talk here, and I open the forum for questions and answers. If you have any questions, kindly raise your hand, and Zainab is going to she's going to moderate this session. And at the end, people have asked questions in the chat box, and I'm going to go through those questions one by one and answer those questions. So over to you, Zainab, please.
Okay, Aisha, you can unmute yourself and ask your queries. Aisha Zaid.
I have.
I
Yes,
can't
Aisha,
hear
we
you.
can hear you.
Aisha, yeah, now I can hear you, Aisha. Please go ahead. Aisha, if you can hear me, please. If you can hear myself or Zainab, please go ahead and ask the question, if you have any.
No, sir, I don't have any question.
Okay. Zainab, who is next?
It's Uzair Akbar. Uzair, you can unmute yourself.
You can ask the question in Urdu also. I'm happy to answer the questions in Urdu as well.
I think I'm telecom background, so telecom background, I'm into the sales, which is quite close to what I'm already doing. Telecom engineer. My question is, if I'm starting journey with guys, to which course will you recommend to me the foundation course? Because I'm kind of thinking with this course and that other option course BI. Or some other course which I will be trying to start my journey with that on this particular field, from the field.
I'm sorry, there was a lot of distortion while you were talking, but what I could pick up from what your question was that you are from a telecom background, and I think you are asking about, what course or what training from the DIE from DICE analytics is most suitable for you. Zainab, did you pick anything?
For me to start my journey.
No, I cannot hear him.
So if your question is to start your journey, I would say that this upcoming training is probably the best, that the best start that you can get, because all the tools that you're going to use, they are absolutely free. You don't need to worry about anything, and that we are going to touch upon all the key areas that I've talked about. We are going to talk. We are going to start off from SQL. We are going to take SQL from day one to the last day. We are going to learn SQL. You're going to do a lot of hands-on exercises, a lot of hands-on learning around SQL, and then basically the whole ETL process where you are picking data from different sources, picking data from SQL database, picking data from something on the cloud, picking data from an Excel sheet on your laptop, and bringing it together to clean that data, then transforming that data, and then basically modeling that data. So everything technical that is there in the data analytics industry, you are going to have a direct understanding of that. And obviously we are going to culminate it on using Power BI. So I would suggest that if you have not already registered for this course, just go ahead and just go ahead and register for this course that we are offering.
Is also a big part of the course, touching data.
I'm sorry, I couldn't get you. There's a lot of distortion. If you can just simply, I think, put it in the message, probably that would be easier to understand.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, a little bit better.
मैं ये कह रहा हूँ कि Power BI would be a big part of this course, and we're just touching it.
No, I think Power BI would be a big part. Obviously, in 2 weeks, we have like the last 2 weeks would be in Power BI. You can't become an expert of Power BI, but you would get enough understanding of all the areas of Power BI, and you'll be doing a hands-on project that is going to give you a good confidence that you have worked something on Power BI. Even I am working on Power BI for the last, I think, 4 years, and I don't claim myself to be an expert in Power BI. So it is basically just small baby steps that you take and you enter, and then basically you learn on your job, and you learn as you progress, and you learn as by solving different kinds of problems. So Power BI is essentially an important part of this course. Yes.
Okay, sir, the last question. You are saying this could be our first step, this course, or the second course you also offer providing a data warehouse and business intelligence. It should be the next step, but it should not be the first step.
Yeah. So the next step could be where you can have like working experience on a real data warehouse. Teradata is something which is an enterprise data warehouse. SQL Server is not an enterprise data warehouse. It is a data warehouse. You understand everything, how it works. But if an enterprise is going to buy a solution, it is not going to buy SQL Server for making a data warehouse. It is for maybe a small and medium enterprise. But for a large organization, if you intend to work for an organization which is huge, and it is working on Teradata, then obviously you can go from that course to that course where you can work hands-on on Teradata's tool. And in the other part, which is the second part of that course, you also learn the Tableau, which we don't cover in here. So yes, logically it could be your next step, but if you don't intend to do something around Teradata, then you can maybe move ahead and go ahead and learn something around data science, maybe go into the big data. It's up to you. But I would say that this is probably the first course that would offer in a very short span of time a good introduction, a sound introduction to all the key areas that define the data analytics ecosystem.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Ji. Any other questions, Zainab?
It's Rana Hamza. You can speak now. Kindly unmute yourself.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
वालेकुम सलाम।
सर मेरा ये क्वेश्चन था कि सर जो माइक्रोसॉफ्ट पावर बीआई है सर वो मैकबुक यूजर्स के लिए नहीं है, अवेलेबल नहीं है, तो सर हाउ कैन आई यूज इट?
कौन से यूजर्स के लिए अवेलेबल नहीं है? मैक
सर
यूजर्स के
मैकबुक
लिए।
के,
हाँ,
जी जी सर
मैकबुक के ऊपर आप नहीं कर सकते, बट व्हाट यू कैन डू इज मे बी यू कैन यूज अजूर के क्लाउड को यूज करते हुए, अजूर के क्लाउड पे अगर आप जाएं, वहां पर आप किसी वीएम के ऊपर पावर बीआई को इंस्टॉल कर लें। आपको इनिशियली जो क्रेडिट मिलता है, आप उस क्रेडिट को यूज करके, जो फ्री क्रेडिट होता है उसको यूज करके आप पावर बीआई वहां पर कर सकते हैं काम उस पर। दैट इज अ लिमिटेशन, ऑब्वियसली दैट इज बाय माइक्रोसॉफ्ट के, उनका मैक के ऊपर नहीं है। दैट इज देयर बिजनेस डिसीजन, बट यू कैन, उसका वर्क अराउंड यही है कि आप Azure क्लाउड के ऊपर अपना अकाउंट बनाएं, उस अकाउंट के ऊपर जो आपको फ्री क्रेडिट मिलता है फॉर द फर्स्ट ईयर, उसको यूज करते हुए आप जो है वो वहां पर एक वीएम के ऊपर पावर बीआई जो है उसको इंस्टॉल कर लें। वेरी वेरी सिंपल, जस्ट इसको गूगल करेंगे तो आप बड़े आराम से, प्रॉब्ली 5-6 स्टेप्स हैं जिसके ऊपर वो सारा कुछ हो जाएगा।
ओके सर, थैंक यू।
यू आर वेलकम जी। जी जैनब
जी, next we have Mohammed Zahid Abbas. Please unmute yourself.
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम सर।
जी वालेकुम सलाम।
जी सर, मेरा एक क्वेश्चन कम थोड़ी सी एक्सप्लेनेशन चाहिए। जो आपने माशाल्लाह डाटा एनालिटिक्स की बेसिक्स वगैरह और एनालिसिस वगैरह के बारे में बताया, इट वाज वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग। अगर इसमें आप जितना आपने बताया है, अगर उसमें कोई एग्जांपल दे दें, फॉर एग्जांपल अगर इफ यू हैव सम रेडी एग्जांपल विद यू, कि फॉर एग्जांपल दिस वाज द बैकग्राउंड ऑफ strategic thinking, and then in this way we achieved the data analytics and the organization got benefit. तो जो हमने आज समराइज किया है आपने, तो वो जरा हमें थोड़ा सा और बेहतर तरीके से समझ आ जाएगी।
जी, मैं आपको एक एग्जांपल दे देता हूं। बिल्कुल, ऑब्वियसली जो बड़ी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं वो तो इस पे दे हैव जंप्ड इनटू दिस इकोसिस्टम, डाटा एनालिटिक्स इकोसिस्टम काफी अरसे से। बट बहुत सारी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस जो कि अप एंड कमिंग हैं या जो कि इस एरिया में यूज कर रही थी जस्ट कन्वेंशनल आपके जो OLTP सिस्टम्स हैं या एक्सेल को यूज कर रही थी फॉर डाटा एनालिसिस, उसमें एक एग्जांपल है। मैं नाम तो नहीं ले सकता बिकॉज दैट्स प्रोबब्ली नॉट गुड टू यूज, बट एक टेक्सटाइल मिल है जो कि बहुत अरसे से मतलब टेक्सटाइल्स के साथ काम कर रही है, एंड दे आर देयर होल सिस्टम बेसिकली अराउंड एक्सेल। और उन्होंने बड़ा सक्सेसफुली एक्सेल से ट्रांजिशन किया है यूजिंग बिल्डिंग अ वेरी स्मॉल डाटा वेयर हाउस SQL सर्वर को यूज करते हुए, बिकॉज उनका इतना बड़ा डाटा का है नहीं कि जिसके लिए उनको कोई एंटरप्राइज लेवल का सोल्यूशन चाहिए हो। और उन्होंने अपने लोगों को बड़ा क्विकली इन 3 से 4 महीने के टाइम में उन्होंने अपने पूरे एक्सेल के सिस्टम को दे हैव मैप्ड दिस इनटू द SQL सर्वर। और SQL सर्वर को यूज करते हुए जहां पर वो एक्सेल के अंदर जो है उनके लोग बैठ के जो है वो रिपोर्टिंग करते थे और उसकी बेसिस के ऊपर फिर अपनी मैनेजमेंट को पावर पॉइंट में प्रेजेंटेशंस देते थे। वहां पे उन्होंने उसकी जगह पे पावर बीआई को यूज किया है, पावर पॉइंट की जगह पे पावर बीआई को। सो एक्सेल और पावर पॉइंट के कॉम्बिनेशन से अब उनका पूरे का पूरा जो रिपोर्टिंग का सिस्टम है उसमें एक डाटा वेयरहाउस भी आ गया, और उस डाटा वेयरहाउस को यूज करते हुए उन्होंने एक अपना पूरा बीआई का सिस्टम जो है वो डेवलप किया, जिसमें हर वक्त दे कैन सी विदाउट द इंटरवेंशन ऑफ एनीबॉडी। यानी किसी को ये नहीं कुछ भी करना, खुद ही आपके जो डेली के रिकॉर्ड्स हैं वो ऑटोमेटिकली आपके डाटा वेयरहाउस में अपडेट हो रहे हैं। उसी की बेसिस के ऊपर ऑटोमेटिकली आपका जो है वो डैशबोर्ड जो है वो अपडेट हो रहा है, और मैनेजमेंट जो है वो अपने मोबाइल फोन के ऊपर जस्ट एक पावर बीआई की जो है ऐप को खोल के वो डेली की ऊपर जो है ना वो कर सकते हैं। सो दिस इज प्रॉब्ली 3 to 4 month लर्निंग कर्व जो कि डिफरेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस ने किया है। और ये तो मैं आपको जो एग्जांपल दे रहा हूँ, दिस इज समथिंग व्हिच आई नो पर्सनली अबाउट। हाँ, बड़े लेवल की ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस तो ऑलरेडी इस पे काम कर रही हैं, बट अब उनका जो मैंडेट है वो ये है कि उनको अपने लोगों को डाटा लिटरेट करना है। उनके डिसीजन मेकर्स को ये नहीं पता कि डाटा को यूज कैसे करना है। सो वहां पे वो बीआई में जो एक कॉन्सेप्ट होता है, मैंने उसकी बात नहीं की, जिसको हम कहते हैं सेल्फ सर्विस। यानी सेल्फ सर्विस, जैसे आप अपनी एक ईमेल का जो अकाउंट खोलते हैं तो अपने इनबॉक्स में जैसे आप नेविगेट करते हैं ना, यहाँ से इधर चले जाएं उधर चले जाएं, या अपने फेसबुक के पेज में। सो अब इस तरह की आप डैशबोर्डिंग करते हैं कि जिसने जो मतलब की चीज निकालनी है, जो उसके मतलब का डाटा है, वो बेसिकली वो उसको खुद ही उसको जो है ना इजीली नेविगेट करके निकाल सके। सो ये एक एग्जांपल है। आपका अगर इससे क्वेश्चन आंसर होता है तो ये है, अगर
Yes, sir.
कोई और
Thank
चीज
you.
है तो यू कैन आस्क।
Thank you so much. I understood. Sir, second thing, जो systems वगैरह आप बता रहे हैं, जिस तरह मुझे थोड़ा सा इत्तेफाक हुआ है Microsoft Project यूज करने का ना। अब Microsoft Project के अंदर जब हम प्रोजेक्ट की पूरी प्लानिंग करते हैं, प्लानिंग करने के बाद उसमें कुछ डिफॉल्ट मैक्रोज हैं और डिफॉल्ट रिपोर्टिंग थिंग्स हैं जिनको हम फॉर एग्जांपल फाइनेंस पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से या क्या कहते हैं लेबर के जो रेट्स हैं, ठीक है, उनके पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से देख सकते हैं। तो इज इट द सेम वे कि जब हम एसक्यूएल और पावर बीआई यूज करते हैं तो डेटा को जो बिल्ट इन मैक्रोज हैं उसमें जो रिपोर्टिंग हम देखना चाहे देख सकते हैं?
जी, आप इस रिपोर्टिंग के लिए एसक्यूएल का अपना एक डेडिकेटेड भी है जिसको कहा जाता है SSRS, एसक्यूएल सर्वर रिपोर्टिंग सर्विसेज। बट नाउ अब एसक्यूएल सर्विस रिपोर्टिंग सर्विसेज को लोग कम यूज कर रहे हैं क्योंकि वो आपको अगेन आपको एक स्टैटिक फॉर्म में रिपोर्ट देता है। आपको अब आप इमेजिन करें ना कि आप एक स्टैटिक रिपोर्ट देख रहे हैं और एक ऐसी रिपोर्ट है कि जिसको डायनेमिकली आप अपनी मर्जी से चेंज कर सकते हैं। ठीक है, मतलब उसको आप अपनी मर्जी से उसके साथ खेलें, जो चीज आप देखना चाहें उसमें आप डायनेमिकली उसको देख अपने हिसाब से एनालाइज करना चाहें। तो वहां पे पावर बीआई आ गया। सो अब SSAS और SSRS, यानी SSAS इज एनालिसिस सर्विसेज और RS इज रिपोर्टिंग सर्विसेज। तो उसको बहुत तेजी से जो है ना पावर बीआई ने पावर बीआई के साथ एक पावर बीआई ने रिप्लेस किया है। और उसके अंदर भी अब उसका अपना एक रिपोर्ट बिल्डर भी है। यानी अगर आपकी वही कन्वेंशनल थिंकिंग भी है कि यार मैंने रिपोर्टें देनी है, मैनेजमेंट को प्रिंट आउट निकाल के देने हैं, तो उसका अपना रिपोर्ट बिल्डर है जिसको कहा जाता है पेजिनेटेड रिपोर्ट्स के लिए रिपोर्ट बिल्डर है, तो वो भी उसका पार्ट है। तो ये सारी चीजें आप उसमें कर सकते हैं बगैर किसी प्रॉब्लम के। और आपको किसी भी लेवल का एनालिसिस अगर आपने करना है, यू कैन गो इनटू दैट एंड डू दैट एनालिसिस।
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू।
यू आर वेलकम जी। जी ज़ैनब
जी, नेक्स्ट इज राजा मोहम्मद, प्लीज अनम्यूट योरसेल्फ।
ज्यादातर क्वेश्चन वैसे जो आ रहे हैं वो फी डिटेल्स के हवाले से आ रहे हैं जो कि बहुत ज्यादा लोगों को कर रहा है। तो फी डिटेल्स आई थिंक आपने मेंशन किए हैं कि 25,000 रुपीज
जी
है
जी, it's
इस कोर्स की
25,000
फी,
rupees.
जिसके ऊपर प्रॉब्ली वी हैव सम ऑफर अभी कुछ चल रही है, डिस्काउंट भी चल रहा है कोई, आई एम नॉट श्योर कि वो कितना है। बट मेरा ख्याल में आप अगर ये लिंक दोबारा से पेस्ट कर दें, इफ द क्वेश्चन इज अराउंड द फी डिटेल्स, तो आई थिंक सब लोगों के लिए आंसर हो जाएगा। आई थिंक आपने किया भी है ये,
जी जी,
आपने
मैंने 2-3
चीजें
बार
जो है
किया।
mention की। जी, जिनका नाम लिया है, अगर if there is a question please ask.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum, sir.
जी वालेकुम सलाम जी।
This is Raja Mohammed here from India. It is a weekend course or daily course, sir? It is you are conducting only Saturday and Sunday?
Yeah, we are only connecting on Saturday and Sunday, 4 hours, which with a 1 hour break in between. We start off on Saturday at 11 a.m. We will continue for 2 hours, then we will have a break for lunch, and then again 2 hours. So it would be 5 hours in total, but 4 hours, working. So it would be 8 hours over the weekend, and total 8 weeks. So it would be 8 into 8 is like 4 hours of working. Yeah.
Okay.
No classes on the weekdays.
Okay. Per day we are spending 11 to 4. 11 to 4. For,
Yeah, 11 to
Saturday
4.
and Sunday. Okay.
Saturday and Sunday.
What is the lunch hour, sir? Because last 2-day workshop we didn't get lunch break for Power BI workshop. Last time you conducted, I think we didn't get a lunch break that time.
I don't know. I don't know about that workshop, but I would make sure that you have a good lunch, so you'll get enough time to have a lunch.
No. I have to make lunch for my parents. That's why.
No, you'll get the break.
Yeah.
You'll get the break. Yeah,
Okay.
it is going to be at 1 o'clock Pakistan time, and it will be 1:30 probably in India.
Yeah. 1 o'clock to how much, sir? 1 hour or?
1 hour. 1 hour, 45 minutes to 1 hour. Yeah.
Okay. Understand, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.
You're welcome. Yes. Any other questions?
Yes, Mohammad Zishan Bukhari, kindly unmute yourself.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
अच्छा सर, थोड़ा सा दोबारा एक स्टेप क्लियर कर दें कि SSRS और पावर बीआई में क्या फ़र्क है। ये मेरा फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन है। और सेकंड क्वेश्चन मेरा ये है कि आप जो ETLs परफॉर्म कर रहे होते हैं, हम लाजमी तो नहीं है कि ETL की तरफ ही जाएं, अक्सर लोग ELT जाते हैं या मतलब उसको एक्सट्रैक्ट ट्रांसफॉर्म नोड को जरा उनकी पोजीशंस को चेंज करके ही कर रहे होते हैं, परफॉर्मिंग एक्शन ले रहे होते हैं। तो उसके हवाले से भी थोड़ा सा गाइड करिएगा और क्या क्या चीज़ें होती हैं फर्दर इसमें। और तीसरा सवाल ये था कि अब जिस तरह माइक्रोसॉफ्ट एसक्यूएल है और हमारे पास इसमें और स्पेशली अज़्योर में क्या फ़र्क है ये चीज़। और जो डेटा वेयर हाउस है उसमें भी ETL परफॉर्म हो रहे होते हैं। अब डेटा साइंस है, ठीक है, डेटा साइंस अभी जिस तरह मैं राइट नाउ आई एम डूइंग माय डेटा साइंस डिग्री, और उसमें भी यही एक तरह से पाइपलाइन को ही फॉलो किया जा रहा है लाइक ETLs की तरह से। क्या पहले आपने डाटा को एक्सट्रैक्ट करना है, क्लीनिंग करनी है, बाद ट्रांसफॉर्म करना है, फिर उसके बाद लोडिंग करनी है, देन आपने उसकी कोई विजुअलाइजेशन करनी है, कोई यूजफुल आपने कोई डाटा को इंसाइट करना है, ब्ला 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 चीजें। तो मुझे थोड़ा सा ना कंफ्यूजन हो रहा है। या तो हम इन चारों मतलब कि अब माइक्रोसॉफ्ट एसक्यूएल हो गया, फिर उसके बाद आपके पास डाटा वेयर हाउस हो गया, उसके बाद डाटा साइंस हो गया, या आप डाटा साइंस के अंदर काफ़ी चीज़ें आ जाती हैं, फिलहाल बिग डाटा भी है। तो इनकी जो फॉलो करते हैं पाइपलाइंस में, इनमें थोड़ा सा मुझे एक फ़र्क बता दें। और मुझे ये बता दें कि हमें कौन सी फील्ड पे फोकस करना चाहिए आज की इंडस्ट्री को देखते हुए, क्योंकि काफ़ी चीज़ें तो हो गई हैं।
जी, मैं
आवाज़
आपके
आवाज़
क्वेश्चन जी, मुझे बिल्कुल आपकी सारी क्वेश्चंस की समझ आ गई है। मैं एक वो स्लाइड के ऊपर पीछे चला जाता हूँ आपके इस क्वेश्चन को आंसर करने के लिए। प्रॉब्ली दिस इज़ द स्लाइड, ये वाली और ये वाली। तो पहला जो क्वेश्चन आपका ये था कि जी व्हाट इज़ द डिफरेंस बिटवीन SSRS एंड पावर बीआई। SSRS जो है ये एक पुराना टूल है एसक्यूएल सर्वर की फैमिली का, जो कि रिपोर्टिंग के लिए यूज होता है कि आपने रिपोर्ट्स बनानी है और वो रिपोर्ट्स के लिए आप SSRS को यूज करते हैं। पावर बीआई में और SSRS में फर्क ये है कि SSRS में द रिपोर्ट इज स्टैटिक। स्टैटिक का मतलब ये होता है कि उसके साथ मैं आपको अगर वो रिपोर्ट दूंगा तो आप उस रिपोर्ट के साथ कुछ नहीं कर सकते, जो आपको नजर आ रहा है बस वही है। मैं पावर बीआई का
ठीक
अगर
है।
आपके साथ रिपोर्ट शेयर करता हूं तो मैं आपको वो एक डायनेमिक चीज दूंगा। आप उस रिपोर्ट के अंदर डायनेमिकली बहुत सारे पैरामीटर्स को चेंज कर सकते हैं। आप कहते हैं फिल्टर्स लगा लो उसके ऊपर,
ठीक है।
आप कहते हैं अच्छा यार मैं ये वाली चीज देखना चाहता हूँ, आप एक का इफेक्ट, एक विजुअल का इफेक्ट दूसरे विजुअल पे देखना चाहते हैं,
मैं समझ गया।
तो ये
मैं
एक
समझ गया।
इंटरेक्शन उसमें आ जाती है। अब आते हैं दूसरे पार्ट के ऊपर। आपने कहा कि जी मैं डाटा साइंस का कर रहा हूँ और उसमें भी हम ये करते, देखिए डाटा साइंस जो है ना, ये इज एन एक्सटेंशन ऑफ दिस होल इकोसिस्टम। आप जब भी
हम्म।
डाटा को शुरू करेंगे सबसे पहले आप ये काम करेंगे, यहां से शुरू करेंगे आप, ठीक है। तो
जी
आप जब
ऐसे ही।
करते विजुअलाइजेशन पे आ जाएंगे तो डाटा साइंस जो है ना वो इससे अगली चीज है। वो ये कहती है भाई ये तो मैंने कर लिया, मुझे ये सारी चीज समझ में आ गई, अब मुझे बताओ कि इस सारे पिछले डाटा की बेसिस के ऊपर क्या मैं 3 महीने बाद की कोई चीज बता सकता हूँ?
प्रिडिक्शन मतलब क्या?
हाँ, आप क्या मैं 3 महीने या 2 महीने बाद की कोई फोरकास्टिंग कर सकता हूँ? क्या मैं
फोरकास्टिंग ठीक है।
इस डाटा के अंदर कुछ ऐसा निकाल सकता हूँ जो मुझे डाटा में वैसे नजर नहीं आ रहा? मतलब जैसे मैं डाटा के
हम्म।
अंदर मुझे कोई क्लस्टर नहीं बने हुए, लेकिन क्या मेरे
हम्म।
डाटा के अंदर कोई नेचुरल क्लस्टर्स बन रहे हैं? जैसे मेरे पास लेट्स से एक कंज्यूमर्स का डाटा है कुछ एक स्टोर के,
हम्म।
तो क्या मैं उन कंज्यूमर्स को क्लस्टर्स में डिवाइड कर सकता हूँ? मुझे कुछ समझ आ सकती है कि अच्छा यार ये वाला मेरा कंज्यूमर जो है ये 1000 रुपए से कम खर्च करता है और साथ में इसकी उम्र इतनी है, और ये वाला जो है ये 1000 रुपए से ज्यादा खर्च करता है और ये इतनी एज का है। फॉर एग्जांपल 1000 रुपए से कम जो लोग खर्च करते हैं वो अब कहते हैं अच्छा यार ये अच्छा छोटे बच्चे हैं, वो अपना को पॉकेट मनी के पैसे लिए और इन्होंने आके यहाँ पे कुछ कर लिया। मैं एक एग्जांपल दे रहा हूँ, मतलब बड़ी क्रूड सी एग्जांपल है, ठीक है।
सही।
मे बी देर आर कुछ लोग हैं जो क्रेडिट कार्ड से पे करते हैं, आप देखते हैं अच्छा हाँ यार ये तो मेरे क्रेडिट कार्ड के कस्टमर्स हैं। तो वो एनालिसिस जब एनरिच होता है ना, तो वहां पर फिर आप उसको मशीन लर्निंग की तरफ ले जाते हैं। आप कहते हैं यार ये पूरा पास्ट का डाटा है, पिछला 5 साल का,
सही सही।
इसकी बेसिस के ऊपर मुझे बस आप बताओ इसमें से कि यार अगले 3 महीने में हम क्या एक्सपेक्ट करें। सो वहां पे फिर यही प्रोसेस एक अगली स्टेप पे चला जाता है जिसमें आपको बहुत डाटा चाहिए होता है, हिस्टोरिकल डाटा भी चाहिए होता है। डाटा वेयर हाउसिंग की जब हम बात कर रहे होते हैं तो वी आर लाइक टॉकिंग अबाउट प्रीवियस डाटा, हम पीछे देख रहे होते हैं, ठीक है। डाटा साइंस में हमारा जो फोकस होता है वो उस पिछली इंफॉर्मेशन को यूज करते हुए आगे देखना होता है, ठीक है। तो ये बेसिकली एक फर्क है, बट उसको कहते हैं डाटा
नहीं,
एनालिटिक्स
मेरा नहीं ख्याल
इकोसिस्टम
कि
का
हम
पार्ट है।
डेटा साइंस में पीछे से आगे की तरफ जा रहे हैं सपोज। मतलब उसमें तो हम, मेरे ख्याल में हम मैं अक्सर जिस तरह है वो बैक एंड पे भी चीजें जो होती है ना, मतलब ओल्ड चीजें, डाटा जो है, जैसे सपोज मेरे पास डाटा है तो उसका कोई ओल्ड ओवरव्यू निकालना है तो वो भी निकाल सकते हैं हम। कोई अगर फॉरवर्ड ओवरव्यू निकालना है लाइक प्रेडिक्शन के हवाले से या फोरकास्टिंग के हवाले से, वो भी कर सकते हैं हम उसमें भी, डाटा
जी
साइंस में।
जी
तो
बिल्कुल कर
डाटा
सकते हैं
वेयर
दोनों।
हाउस में भी हम ऑनलाइन ट्रांजैक्शन जो है, मतलब कि रियल टाइम का डाटा भी ज्यादातर यूज कर रहे हैं, फिर टेक्स्ट फंक्शन वगैरह यूज कर रहे हैं, ब्ला ब्ला चीजें यूज कर रहे हैं। मुझे ये समझ नहीं आ रही कि जब अब पाइथन आ गई है या डाटा साइंस की चीजें आ गई हैं, ठीक है, तो आप सारी इंडस्ट्री को मूव क्यों नहीं कर रहे एक तरह से? आप डाटा साइंस को क्यों नहीं लेके आ रहे? उसमें भी सारी चीजें ये परफॉर्म कर सकते हैं, पाइथन के थ्रू सारे एक्शन कर सकते हैं। एसक्यूएल लाजमी आना है, लेकिन थोड़ा सा पता नहीं, मुझे समझ नहीं आती ये चीजें, क्योंकि ये
देखिए
मिक्स होई जा रही
एसक्यूएल
है,
जो है
पता
ना,
नहीं मेरी, या तो मैं
जी
जैसे
जी,
जैसे आगे पढ़ता जा रहा हूँ।
आप बिल्कुल आप सही फरमा रहे हैं। एसक्यूएल जो है वो 80 आई थिंक 1980 में आई थी फर्स्ट टाइम, 1980 में एसक्यूएल आई थी, और एसक्यूएल ही के ऊपर ये सारे सिस्टम्स बेस्ड हैं। आज से 20 साल के बाद क्या होगा, नोबडी कैन से। ऑब्वियसली अब आपकी ये जो हायर लेवल लैंग्वेजेस हैं ये इतनी पावरफुल हैं कि एक नया एंट्रेंट जो आ रहा है उसको प्रोबेबली वो सारे काम वो कर सकता है, बट फिर भी कुछ चीजें ऐसी हैं जो कि अभी भी आप नहीं कर सकते। कुछ पुराने सिस्टम्स हैं, कुछ ऐसी चीजें हैं जो कि आपको एसक्यूएल उसके लिए आपको आनी चाहिए, बट मे बी 10 ईयर्स डाउन द लाइन यू आर करेक्ट, मे बी ऐसी कुछ चीज की रिक्वायरमेंट ही ना हो। अब आपको को डॉस सीखने डॉस की कमांड्स इस वक्त याद करने की या उनके ऊपर काम करने की जरूरत तो नहीं है, ऐसा तो नहीं
जी
है
जी,
ना। मतलब
ऐसे
लेकिन आज से 15 साल पहले जो
ऐसे
लोग
ही।
कंप्यूटर यूज करते थे वो बहुत सारे सॉफ्टवेयर जो थे वो डॉस पे चलते थे, तो उनको डॉस की कमांडें भी
जी जी।
जो है आनी चाहिए थी कि यार मेक डायरेक्टरी करना है, सीडी करना है, आरडी करना है। तो वो
हम्म।
अवॉल्व कर रहा है ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ टाइम, बट स्टिल अ लार्ज सेगमेंट ऑफ दिस इंडस्ट्री इज रिलायंट अपॉन एसक्यूएल। द वे द डाटा इज स्टोर्ड, आपको एसक्यूएल आनी चाहिए एट दिस पॉइंट इन टाइम। मे बी इन 10
जी जी।
ईयर्स मे बी यू डोंट नीड टू, यू नो, कोई और चीज आ गई हो सकता है आप जो बात कर रहे हैं पाइथन ही से आपका गुजारा हो जाता हो, ऐसी ये चीज है।
हम्म। अच्छा, मुझे अज्योर और जो माइक्रोसॉफ्ट एसक्यूएल के जितने भी जिस तरह सपोज ईटीएल्स के लिए यूज होते हैं टूल, अज्योर और माइक्रोसॉफ्ट एसक्यूएल में कोई फर्क है ईटीएल के हवाले से,
देखिए
जो टूल्स यूज कर रहे
अज्यूर
हैं हम?
अज्यूर इज ऑन द क्लाउड, अज्यूर माइक्रोसॉफ्ट का क्लाउड है, और
उसकी
बाकी
पाइपलाइन भी
एसक्यूएल
डिफरेंट होगी अज्योर की?
उसकी पाइपलाइन होगी मतलब उसी तरह जिस तरह की हम पाइपलाइन अभी हमने डिस्कस की, बट उसका बेसिकली सारा कुछ आपके पास नहीं होगा, वो कहीं और होगा, इट वुड बी ऑन द क्लाउड। फर्क सिर्फ ये
हाँ,
है,
जैसा
दैट
कि
इज द
आपने
ओनली
एग्जांपल
थिंग।
ली कि हम किसी और कंप्यूटर में, सपोज आप इजी एग्जांपल बता रहे थे, जैसा कि किसी
जी
और
जी जी
कंप्यूटर यूज करते हुए, उनकी इंटरफेस को यूज करते हुए, उनकी सर्विसेज को यूज करते हुए हम उस पर काम कर रहे हैं, दिस इज क्लाउड।
जी जी
लेकिन
जी जी
काम हम
जी
वही कर रहे हैं जो माइक्रोसॉफ्ट एसक्यूएल में कर रहे हैं, जिस तरह आप या डेटा वेयर हाउस में कर रहे हैं, ईटीएल्स को फॉलो कर रहे हैं, ऐसे ही है?
काइंड ऑफ सिमिलर, यस, काइंड ऑफ सिमिलर।
अच्छा, मुझे
सो
ये बता दें एक और सवाल कि ईटीएल जो है, जिस तरह एक्सट्रैक्ट ट्रांसफॉर्म लोड, मतलब फर्स्ट ये चेन होगी ना, अक्सर लोग करते हैं पहले लोड, फिर उसके बाद एक्सट्रैक्ट करते हैं, फिर उसके बाद सॉरी लोड के बाद एक्सट्रैक्ट करते हैं, फिर इस तरह की कुछ थी दो तीन, तो उनके हवाले से मुझे भूली हुई है। मैं ये क्वेश्चन करना चाह रहा था कि थोड़ा सा मुझे बता दें, एलेबोरेट
जी,
करते हैं।
ईटीएल और ईएलटी का डिफरेंस आप पूछ रहे हैं। देखें ईटीएल जो है ये पुराना था, इट वाज जब बेसिकली जो टर्मिनोलॉजी पहले यूज होती थी वाज ईटीएल। अब जैसे जैसे डाटा की वो जो है वो ज्यादा हो गई है, डाटा की स्टोरेज की कैपेसिटी ज्यादा हो गई है, और प्लेटफॉर्म जैसे आ गए हैं कि डाटा को स्टोर करना आसान है, तो वो कहते हैं यार डाटा को पहले लोड कर लो, पहले ले आओ डाटा को, बस पहले एक्सट्रैक्ट करो और ले आओ, लोड पहले कर लो और ट्रांसफॉर्म हम बाद में कर लेंगे। सो दैट इज द ओनली डिफरेंस। सो आपको जरूरत नहीं है कि आप हर वक्त वो करें। तो पहले ये होता था, वो कहते थे यार हम एक्सट्रैक्ट डाटा को करेंगे और ट्रांसफॉर्म करके लोड करेंगे डाटा वेयर हाउस में, क्योंकि हमारे लिए मेमोरी इंपॉर्टेंट है, हमारे लिए स्पेस इंपॉर्टेंट है। अब वो कहते हैं यार जरूरत ही कोई नहीं है, जो कुछ भी है उसको ले आओ, लोड पहले कर लो,
हम्म।
ट्रांसफॉर्म हम जब उसको यूज करना होगा तो हम
इसका
ट्रांसफॉर्म कर
मतलब
लेंगे।
तो फिर आपकी इस बात का मतलब तो ये हुआ ना कि हमें बिग डेटा का इशू आ रहा है, मतलब कि डेटा वेयर हाउस में भी आ रहा है, माइक्रोसॉफ्ट एसक्यूएल में भी आ रहा है। जैसे अगर
जी
हम ईएलटी यूज करते हैं तो इसका मतलब तो यही हुआ कि बिग डेटा का इशू आ रहा
जी, लेकिन जी हर एक को तो नहीं आ रहा ना, मतलब हर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का तो ये चैलेंज नहीं है कि वो हर चीज के लिए वो ईएलटी पे जाए। ऑब्वियसली उसकी कॉस्ट है, हर चीज की कॉस्ट होती है। आप जब एक्सट्रैक्ट और लोडिंग कर रहे हैं तो उसके लिए आपको ज्यादा मेमोरी चाहिए, आपको ज्यादा प्रोसेसिंग चाहिए। जब आप उस तरह की चीजें कर रहे हैं, आप मल्टीपल पाइपलाइंस को कहते हैं यार, सारों को इकट्ठा जो है वो लोड कर लो। तो वो सारे उसके प्रोज एंड कॉन्स हैं, बट यस एसेंशियली एट द एंड ऑफ द डे आपने डाटा को कहीं पे स्टोर करना है किसी फॉर्म में ट्रांसफॉर्म करके, तो उसमें ईएलटी करें या ईटीएल करें, जो डाटा एनालिसिस के लिए आपको चाहिए वो डाटा जो है ना वो आपको लाना उसी तरह ही होता है। सो इट डिपेंड्स अपॉन द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन कि वो किसमें को कौन सी को प्रेफर करती है अपनी रिक्वायरमेंट के हिसाब से। ठीक है,
है।
तो वो जरूरी नहीं है कि आप पे कहें कि जी मतलब जो है ना हर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ही ईटीएल करे या हर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ही ईएलटी करे। इट डिपेंड्स अपॉन कि वो कितना डाटा प्रोसेस कर रहे हैं और उनके डाटा की यूजेज की रिक्वायरमेंट क्या है। ठीक है जी।
हाँ, ठीक हो गया। इसका मतलब ये इंडस्ट्री पे भी डिपेंड करता है और उनकी डाटा की कैपेसिटी पे भी डिपेंड करती हैं ये चीज़ें। देन वी कैन परफॉर्म डिफरेंट एक्शंस लाइक ईटीएल और
जी
ईएलटी।
जी, कैपेसिटी पे, रिक्वायरमेंट पे और पैसे पे, ये सब चीजें एट द एंड ऑफ द डे
Cost.
मनी इज यस, कॉस्ट कितनी, आप कितना पैसे खर्च कर सकते हैं, आप
लाइक
कितनी परफॉर्मेंस
जिस
आप ले
तरह
सकते
बिग डाटा में मैंने पढ़ा था 4 Ps के, उसकी कॉस्ट भी आ जाती है, उसकी मतलब
हैं।
सारी
जी जी
चीजें
जी,
को ऑब्जर्व करना होता है।
बिल्कुल
5 Ps
बिल्कुल
थी या 4 Ps थी जो इसमें।
जी।
अच्छा, मुझे एक और थोड़ी सी छोटी गाइडेंस चाहिए कि जिस तरह मैं, मेरा जो शौक है वो है डेटा साइंस का भी शौक है, मेरा डेटा वेयर हाउस का भी शौक है, और डेटाबेस, तो डेटा वेयर हाउस और डेटाबेस पे थोड़ा सा एक्सपर्ट एक्सपर्ट हूँ ना, मतलब टेरा डेटा के साथ थोड़ी सी इंटर्नशिप की हुई है लाहौर में, ठीक है, ETL वगैरह पे काम किया हुआ है, लेकिन मैं अब कोर्स भी करना चाह रहा हूँ फर्दर इसी से रेलिवेंट। डेटा साइंस तो ऑलरेडी मैं पढ़ रहा हूँ, तो कोई आप सजेस्ट करें अगर मुझे।
आपने अगर ऑलरेडी डाटा वेयरहाउस पे काम किया हुआ है तो फिर तो बेसिकली, और डाटा साइंस आप ऑलरेडी पढ़ रहे हैं, तो फिर मतलब अगर आप कोई चीजें
मैं
आती हैं
दोबारा
तो मैं क्या
रिवाइज
कह
भी
सकता
करना चाह रहा हूँ ना।
हूं, तो आ
आप
जाए फिर
मेरे
आप,
ख्याल में
ये जो
आप
कोर्स
टेराडेटा
हमारा,
से बिलोंग करते हैं, मैंने
नहीं
आपका थोड़ा सा प्रोफाइल पढ़ी
मैं
थी।
टेरा डेटा से बिलोंग नहीं करता, आई डोंट बिलोंग टू टेरा डेटा, मैं टेरा डेटा से नहीं हूं, मतलब मेरा टेरा डेटा का एक्सपीरियंस नहीं है।
नहीं, आपकी पिक्चर जो बनी हुई थी ना, तो मैंने लिंक्डइन खोली थी, तो पता नहीं फिर आप कोई और होंगे जो प्रेजेंट कर रहे हैं।
आप जो मेरी प्रोफाइल का लिंक जैनब ने शेयर किया, आप उसको खोल के देखेंगे तो आपको मेरी प्रोफाइल नजर आ जाएगी। आई वुड अप्रिशिएट
ठीक
कि
है,
और भी बहुत सारे लोग हैं जिन्होंने क्वेश्चंस करने हैं, तो अगर हम बाकी लोगों को भी
चलें,
टाइम देते हैं, आप
ठीक है,
काफी क्वेश्चंस
ठीक है,
कर लिए हैं,
ओके,
ठीक है, थैंक
थैंक
यू,
यू फॉर योर टाइम।
ठीक
ओके,
है।
अल्लाह हाफिज।
So,
Sir,
so
we
there
have a
was,
request.
so yeah, there was I think question, or there was a comment that you would appreciate if the question and answers are translated in English also. I'll do that for the future questions. So basically the questions were around the difference between the ETL methodology and ELT methodology, how data science fits into this whole ecosystem of the data analytics ecosystem, and a couple of things around the tools. So G, over to you, Zainab.
Ji, next is Uzair Akbar. Kindly unmute yourself.
मेरा एक क्वेश्चन डाइट एनालिटिक्स जो है वो डिजिटल के हवाले से, जो हम लोग नॉन बीज हैं, जो न्यू बीज हैं, सॉरी, वो न्यू बीज हैं जो हम इस फील्ड में आना चाह रहे हैं, तो हम कोर्स तो अटेंड कर लेंगे फ्रॉम डाइट, माशाल्लाह अच्छे आप लोग इंस्ट्रक्टर में अच्छा तरह से सिस्टम है, लेकिन व्हाट अबाउट द रिक्रूटमेंट, रिक्रूटमेंट के हवाले से डाइट एनालिटिक्स में क्या सपोर्ट है?
Okay. So मैं पहले आपको उर्दू में बता देता हूँ, then I'll translate my answer, the crux of my answer in English. देखें, आप जब डाइस एनालिटिक्स से कोर्स करते हैं ना, जो ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट बात है समझने की, और ये बहुत सारे लोगों के, खास तौर पे जो स्टूडेंट्स ग्रेजुएट कर रहे होते हैं पाकिस्तान में, वो इस चीज को अंडरस्टैंड नहीं करते। एक इंग्लिश में देयर इज अ यू नो अ सेंटेंस जिसको कहते हैं, योर नेटवर्क इज योर नेटवर्थ, योर नेटवर्क इज योर नेटवर्थ, यानी आपकी जो वर्थ होती है ना एज अ प्रोफेशनल, वो आपके नेटवर्क से पता चलती है, ठीक है। सो डाइस एनालिटिक्स इज नॉट एन इंस्टीट्यूट के जिसकी ट्रेनिंग लेने से आपका एक काम जो है ना ट्रेनिंग की हद तक है, आप एक नेटवर्क में एंटर कर रहे हैं, आप एक प्रोफेशनल जो है ना ग्रुप में एंटर कर रहे हैं, कि जहां पर ये अल्टीमेटली आपकी होनी ही रिक्रूटमेंट और आपकी जो कैरियर की प्रोफाइल की बिल्डिंग है। दो चीजें मैं छोटी छोटी मेंशन कर देता हूं, क्योंकि फिर टाइम हमारे पास नहीं है इतना। वो ये है कि जब आप कोर्स में ज्वाइन करते हैं, तो हमारा ड्यूरिंग द कोर्स जो हमारी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में जो उसके एमडी हैं या सीईओ हैं, हूसोएवर इज अवेलेबल, वो कैरियर काउंसलिंग का एक प्रॉपर सेशन करते हैं, ठीक है। वो जो कुछ बातें जो मैंने की हैं वो भी आपके साथ करेंगे, फिर वो आपको कैरियर काउंसलिंग का बताएंगे कि अच्छा यार, ये फलानी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में ये अपॉर्चुनिटी है, ये यहाँ पर ये अपॉर्चुनिटी है, यहाँ पर जाने के लिए आप ये कर लें, यहाँ पर जाने के लिए कर लें। कोर्स में तो हम करा ही रहे होते हैं, ऑब्वियसली आपको बता रहे होते हैं कि ये भी कर लें, इस तरह कर लें, और इसका आपको यहाँ पर फायदा होगा। तो ये एक अलग से सेशन होता है, नंबर 1। नंबर 2, दोज हु टेक दिस कोर्स सीरियसली एंड दोज हु क्वालिफाई द कोर्स, यानी ये ऐसे नहीं है कि आपने ट्रेनिंग खाली अटेंड की और आपने वो नहीं किया। ट्रेनिंग की कुछ रिक्वायरमेंट्स हैं जो आप मीट करते हैं और आप कोर्स को क्वालिफाई करते हैं, तो डाइस आपको जो सर्टिफिकेट देता है, ऑब्वियसली डाइस के उस सर्टिफिकेट की उस इंडस्ट्री में एक वर्थ है, कि जहां लोगों को पता है कि यार डाइस एनालिटिक्स से किस तरह की ट्रेनिंग करवा रहा है, एटलीस्ट पाकिस्तान में। और दूसरा ये है कि देयर आर सो मेनी ग्रुप्स व्हाट्सएप के जिनके ऊपर आप आ जाते हैं बाय डिफॉल्ट, और उन ग्रुप्स में मतलब जो है ना डेली बेसिस के ऊपर जो है ना वो आपके पास डायरेक्ट फ्रॉम द रिक्रूटर्स मैसेजेस आ रहे होते हैं, रोज आ रहे होते हैं। मेरा तो मतलब सारा दिन ही व्हाट्सएप के मोबाइल के ऊपर 90% मैसेजेस जो है वो डाइस एनालिटिक्स के आ रहे होते हैं, फलाने ग्रुप का मैसेज, फलाने ग्रुप का मैसेज, फलाने ग्रुप का। तो आप बेसिकली उस इकोसिस्टम का पार्ट बनते हैं, फिर आप उस नेटवर्क का पार्ट बनते हैं, लोगों के साथ आप कनेक्ट करते हैं, लोगों को पता चलता है। हमारे नॉर्मली ये होता है कि टॉप 3 जो स्टूडेंट्स हैं विद इन, यानी, और अगर वो फ्रेश हों, ऑब्वियसली अगर वो ऑलरेडी कोई जॉब कर रहे हैं और उनकी कोर रीजन है ट्रेनिंग करने की, टॉप 3 स्टूडेंट्स को विद इन 3 months दे गेट अ जॉब, यू नो, इन द टॉप कंपनीज। क्योंकि उसकी वजह ये है कि ये इतनी तेजी से मार्केट ग्रो कर रही है कि जो लोग ऑलरेडी इस मार्केट में हैं पाकिस्तान में, उनको ज्यादा लुक्रेटिव ऑफर्स पाकिस्तान के बाहर से आना शुरू हो जाती हैं। ठीक है, सो वो लोग जो यहाँ पे 3-4 साल में एक अपनी स्पेस बनाते हैं, वो पाकिस्तान से बाहर चले जाते हैं, मिडिल ईस्ट में चले जाते हैं, यूरोप में चले जाते हैं, इवन यूएस में भी गए हैं बहुत सारे लोग। तो वो एक गैप इंडस्ट्री में क्रिएट होता है। तो इंडस्ट्री को तो फौरन बंदा चाहिए होता है, तो वो फौरन देखते हैं यार ऐसा बंदा है कि जिसको हमें पहले दिन ही जो है ना हम उसको काम पे लगाएं। ये ना हो कि वो कहे जी मुझे तो ये भी नहीं पता, मुझे तो ये भी नहीं पता। तो ये एक पूरा इकोसिस्टम इस तरह से चल रहा है कि लोग आगे जा रहे हैं और आप उनकी जगहों को फिल कर रहे हैं। तो ये एक कॉन्सेप्ट आपको भी क्लियर होना चाहिए कि ये एक खाली ट्रेनिंग नहीं है जो आप कर रहे हैं, ये आप एक नेटवर्क का पार्ट बन रहे हैं। और नेटवर्क का पार्ट बनने के लिए 25,000 अगर आप आज लगाते हैं और 3 महीने के बाद वो 25,000 जो है वो आपका 2.5 लाख रुपए में कन्वर्ट हो जाता है, मैं हाइपोथेटिकल बात कर रहा हूँ, मे बी 2.5 लाख ना हो, लाख भी हो, तो आपकी कॉस्ट तो रिकवर होगी ना। तो हमारे यहाँ ये कॉन्सेप्ट बहुत ही एक, आई डोंट नो फॉर व्हाट एवर रीजन है, मे बी यूनिवर्सिटीज में भी, और ऑब्वियसली फाइनेंशियली लोगों के ऊपर बर्डन्स भी होते हैं कि आप अपने में इन्वेस्ट नहीं करते। आप कहते हैं यार बस इधर से कुछ पकड़ लो, इधर से कुछ पकड़ लो, इधर से कुछ पकड़ लो, और वो पकड़ के वो अल्टीमेटली वो एंड में क्या बनता है वो कुछ पता नहीं है कि क्या बनता है। एक सिस्टमेटिक चीज जब आप करते हैं जिसमें प्रॉपर आपको कोचिंग मिलती है, प्रॉपर आपको मेंटरिंग मिलती है, उसकी आउटपुट में, और एक इधर से कुछ पकड़ लिया, इधर से कुछ पकड़ लिया, इधर से कुछ पकड़ लिया और उसको इकट्ठा कर दिया, उसमें फर्क होता है। यस, आप जब अपने करियर में आगे जाते हैं तो लर्निंग तो आपने करनी ही है, ऑब्वियसली यू हैव टू लर्न एट एवरी स्टेप। मैं अभी भी मतलब 22 साल के बाद भी आई एम लर्निंग समथिंग न्यू एवरी डे। अगर मैं नहीं करूंगा तो मैं इंडस्ट्री में ऑब्सोलीट हो जाऊंगा। ठीक है, तो ये एक पूरा प्रोसेस है जिस प्रोसेस को आप जो है ना वो कर सकते हैं। सो मैंने काफी डिटेल में बता दिया, ऑल्दो मेरा मूड नहीं था, लेकिन आई थिंक इट वाज रिक्वायर्ड क्योंकि बहुत सारे लोगों का क्वेश्चन होता है। सो होप यू गेट द आंसर। जी, जिनका क्वेश्चन था, आई होप आई आंसर योर क्वेश्चन। जी Zainab, I think let's
Next
move
we
on to
have
the next.
Faiza Sultana. Faiza, please unmute yourself.
अस्सलाम
जी वालेकुम सलाम।
सर, एक्चुअली आपने मुझे वही क्वेश्चन का जवाब दे ही दिया जो मुझे चाहिए था। एक्चुअली आई एम फ्रॉम टेलीकम्युनिकेशन डिपार्टमेंट एंड आई आल्सो वर्किंग इन नेटवर्किंग डिपार्टमेंट, बट मैंने मास्टर्स अपना डेटा साइंस में किया हुआ है।
जी जी करें क्वेश्चन।
में किया हुआ है और अब मैं चाह रही हूँ कि मैं अपना जो नेटवर्किंग से मैं डेटा साइंस में जाना चाह रही हूँ। ऑलरेडी मेरा तकरीबन मास्टर्स 1 ईयर का हो चुका है, जस्ट 1 ईयर मेरा रिमेनिंग रह गया है। तो मैं इस पे अब अपने आप को बढ़ाना चाह रही हूँ। तो इसी तरह से जो आपने अभी बताया तकरीबन मेरा हो गया है। आप मुझे बता सकते हैं कि मैं अब किस फील्ड में जाऊँ? तो मुझे कोई माइंड मैपिंग चाहिए, करियर
देखें,
काउंसलिंग वगैरह।
आपने अगर डाटा साइंस में कर लिया है एंड इफ यू नो गुड टूल्स तो फिर तो आपको प्रॉब्ली आइडिया होगा कि आपने क्या करना है। बट अगर आपने अगर मास्टर्स किया है, मुझे नहीं पता आपने कहाँ से किया, और अगर आपको यू आर नॉट कॉन्फिडेंट ऑन द
एनएडी से।
टूल्स।
आई एम फ्रॉम एनएडी।
Okay, so if you are not confident on the tools, then obviously the switching part is not easy. जो आपको रिक्रूट करेगा ना, he is not looking at your probably, अब इस वक्त obviously डिग्री को तो देख ही रहे होते हैं लोग, उनकी रिक्वायरमेंट्स भी होती हैं जॉब में, बट they're not essentially looking at कि आपने उस डिग्री में कौन कौन से कोर्सेज पढ़े हैं। वो आपसे पूछेंगे आपने फलाने टूल पे काम किया है। इफ योर आंसर इज यस तो वो अगला सवाल करेंगे। इफ योर आंसर इज नो तो मे बी वो 1-2 सवाल और आपसे करें एंड दे वुड से थैंक यू वेरी मच, दैट्स इट। सो पीपल आर लुकिंग फॉर फॉर पीपल के जिनको उनके काम में ऑन बोर्ड करके उनसे आउटपुट लेने में कम से कम टाइम लगे। किसी भी फर्म की रिक्रूटमेंट का क्रक्स ये है कि जो बंदा मेरे पास आए वो डे 1 से मेरी आउटपुट में या मेरे प्रोसेस में कंट्रीब्यूट करे, इंस्टेड ऑफ हैविंग अ 3 month और 2 month लर्निंग कर्व और फिर उसके बाद वो करे। तो इफ यू यू नो विद योर मास्टर्स, इफ यू आर कॉन्फिडेंट कि आपको वो टूल्स आते हैं, यू कैन गो अहेड एंड एंटर अ जॉब और स्विच योर जॉब, then please go ahead. And if you feel you are not confident, then these are the trainings that would probably prepare you in a much better way.
यस, मैं एक्चुअली डेटा साइंस एंड एमएल में तो ऑलरेडी एनरोल्ड हूँ और डीडब्ल्यूएच एंड बीआई ऑलरेडी कर रही हूँ। ऑलरेडी 2 कोर्सेज यहाँ से कर रही हूँ।
अगर आप कर रही हैं तो आपको उसके बाद मतलब आपकी अगर कोई फर्दर रिक्वायरमेंट है जो कि मैंने आज बताया, तो यू कैन एनरोल इन द कोर्स व्हिच इज स्टार्टिंग इन 3 days टाइम। सो वो तो उसका इस सवाल का तो प्रॉब्ली आप ही बेहतर जवाब दे सकती हैं। मैंने तो आपके सामने वो सारा कुछ रख दिया है जो हम करवाएंगे उसमें।
ओके सर, थैंक यू सर।
यू आर वेलकम जी। जी ज़ैनब।
जी, next we have Zulekha Jabbar. Zulekha, please unmute yourself.
आवाज नहीं आ रही है, आई कांट हियर जुलेखा।
She's unmuted.
Yeah, but can't hear.
I think we should move further. We have some
Yeah.
questions in the Q&A chat section.
Okay, so you want me to, I guess I will type my questions. Yeah, Zulekha, you can type your questions and I'll answer those. So we have a few questions from the audience in the Q&A section. So Zulekha just put a question: how much of Azure Data Factory part from week 6 of course is hands-on? So it's probably 1 week dedicated on Azure Data Factory. It's like 8 hours. 8 hours you would spend on Azure Data Factory, but obviously Azure Data Factory is not isolated. Everything that we will be covering in the first 5 weeks, or maybe in the first 5 weeks, we are going to take that information and take that into the Azure Data Factory. So basically SSI is on the cloud, right? Okay. Right. So I think I should answer the questions in the chat window. So the question is that I'm a business graduate and want to move towards data analytics side. What are the opportunities for me, and is this decision of moving towards data science a good one? So yes, obviously, that, like I said, that everything these days is around something around data. So if you are a business graduate and you are already in the industry and you know how business works, then obviously you need to add some kind of technical knowledge to go about with that business knowledge that you already have, and you will obviously get opportunities both on the technical side as well as on the decision making side. So I think that's not something to think about twice. You need to just think what course you want to take, and that totally depends on your own on your own liking. How a person can collect and transform data without understanding at step 3? Either understand the data step will come first and then preparation. So understanding the data is not understanding in terms of what this column is all about. That you have already done once you are collecting that data. Obviously, if you are collecting data, then you obviously know that this is the thing that I understand. Understanding the data here in this particular context is basically how you understand the data and model that data. You need to model that data so that it is useful for the analysis. The BI tools, they want the data to be placed in a certain way, or in a certain schema, which we call as a star schema or the snowflake schema. So that is that is the part that is understanding of data. So it is the data modeling and how you create these fact tables and dimension tables and all these technicalities. So will you be uploading this on the DICE YouTube platform? I guess we would be.
Yes.
Any possibility to start evening badge? I think this right now, this is a badge which is being run on the weekends. So probably yes, maybe there is some badge that is running on weekdays in the evening. And I am a non-IT and I'm planning to shift career. Will I be able to this field? Yes, obviously you can very easily come, and you can from a business background, or even from any non-technical background, you can come and join these trainings and shift your career. And there are a lot of examples in the all over the world, people who have changed their fields from very, very different work that they were doing, and now they are very, very successful people in the data industry. So Power BI, I think I've already answered this. What is the difference between data analytics and business analytics? So data analytics and business analytics is different in the sense that in business analytics you learn the techniques that the business users learn. It's more on the business development side or the business analysis side. In data analytics, we are primarily focusing on the techniques for transforming the data, loading data, how the data tools work. So it's a bit different, but we have a dedicated course on business analytics where all the the major terminologies of business and analytics are covered. So you can visit the DICE website and see the details for that course. What is the difference between SSRS and Power BI? I think I've covered that. How many ways to perform ETL? I think I have touched upon that. There are so many tools. You can do that in SQL only. Don't need to use any tool, but that is a very cumbersome process. So people use tools which are easy to understand, like SSIS is one of them. Then there is Informatica, Talent. There are a lot of other tools also. It's online course or on-premise. There is an online course. On-premise, we don't have on-premise course at the moment. Will the PPT shared? I don't know. The webinar would be shared. Obviously, the PPT would also be part of that. Are you helping to prepare Microsoft related exams preparation? So yes, once we are into the course, we do give hints on how to prepare yourself for the exam. Obviously, it's not something. It's not an exam preparation course, but we kind of cover 60 to 70% of things which are directly relevant to the exam. So part of the 30% that you have to do on your own, and rest of the stuff we cover. So I've covered everything on the Q&A section. So we have something coming up in the chat box. I have done BS and CS in 2017, and now working with power engineering industry. Now I want to do masters, but confused which field I have to do masters. Can you please guide me? So if you ask me to spend money, I would say don't go for the masters, because ultimately it's not going to be free. Just go and do these professional trainings and earn certifications which are recognized in the industry. Do it from Microsoft, do it from AWS, do it from Google, anywhere you want to go, but it would have a much better value at the end of the day than doing a master's from a local university. If you're doing a master's from a world renowned university, please do go ahead and do that. I'm already taking business analytics course. I would like to take this course in next session, inshallah. Okay, ji, welcome. Please mention DICE and YouTube channel. I think Zainab has mentioned that. And are we going to cover Tableau? No, we are not going to cover Tableau in this course. It is not mentioned in the course outline as well. We are just going to cover Power BI. Any badge in the evening, I think it's probably not for the next 2-3 months, because for the next 8 weeks, we would be running this one. And maybe after that, we have some badge in the evening as well. So that's it from the chat as well as the Q&A. So if there is any other question somebody wants to ask, please, we have still 6-7 minutes. You can ask the question if somebody has. Yeah, Zainab, is anybody? You can just make an email account on Hotmail or Outlook and use that for or even any other platform. You can just make an email address and just go on Azure portal, just write Microsoft Azure and make an account on Azure, and you can get free credits for the first, I think it's the first few months, or I don't know, maybe for the first year. I think on AWS it is for the first year, and Microsoft it is for a few months. And you can use Microsoft Learn. Microsoft Learn is also a very good repository if you want to do something from Microsoft Learn. I put it in the chat box. Any other questions, Zainab?
No, I think Aisha is asking about the registration. Aisha, I've already mentioned the link. You can email us on info@diceanalytics.pk for further details.
I think if this is something that has been copied from our website, then probably this is something that needs to be updated, because we will be covering the Power BI part, not the Tableau part. I think there must have been some mistake. So we are not going to cover Tableau. Last 2 weeks, we are going to cover Power BI only. So Zainab, can you please look into this? This is something probably which is somebody has pasted from the. Yeah, if maybe there is some mistake, somebody put this on content on the web. Is data analytics a prerequisite for business analytics? No, it's not. Business analytics has a very specific domain where you are not bothered how this data is coming to you. you are not bothered. You basically are just interesting. Your job is just to do the analysis. So business and analytics is not business analyst is not responsible for all these parts that we are talking about today, like ETL and data modeling and something like that. So very, very limited information is required for a business analyst as compared to a data analyst. Mentions Tableau. I think that this is a mistake. I think corrected that. Okay. Why teach Azure over AWS given market share? Yeah. So essentially, if you learn something on one cloud platform, then the transformation is not that difficult. So if we are covering Microsoft as the tools, on-premise tools like SQL Server and SSIS, then obviously the natural transformation is using the Azure cloud for something similar. So because all of this is kind of replicated there in the cloud. But yes, Azure has also a very good share. Maybe in Pakistan people are more in AWS, but Azure has a very good share in the international market. So it's no if you do something on Azure, don't think that you have done something which has absolutely no value. There are a lot of people, a lot of demand for Azure qualified people in the industry. So I think we are done with everything. Probably I think Zainab has posted the link where you can just go and have a look at where you can register. It's the course content. Probably there is some mistake which I think that would be corrected. And if people are interested, they should please go to the DICE website and register for this course. And we see you guys on Saturday, 22nd.
Yeah, so that's all about the webinar.
Yeah.
To all the attendees, we hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you so much for participating. You guys can email us for the recording or any queries regarding our trainings at info@diceanalytics.pk. Data analytics using Microsoft SQL Server Tools training is starting from 22nd of January. Classes will be on weekends, Saturday and Sunday from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. as already mentioned by Sir Abu Bakr. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, everybody, and have a very pleasant evening. And see you guys, most of you guys in the course as well. Thank you. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Allah Hafiz.